Hello and welcome in this new series of video on my channel, this time in English. Videos where we are discovering React by resolving a simple exercise that we are giving to our learners at Bcode, the company where I work with as a coach. This exercise is a really easy one to discover React. We are just going to create a small Pomodoro timer without any server communication or anything complex, just focusing on how React is working. So we will just create a timer which will show the number for the minutes, the number for the seconds, 4 buttons, one to remove 1 minute from the timer, one button to restore the timer at its original time, one button to make play pause to the timer, and the last one to add 1 minute to the timer. Also, when the timer is running and reaching 0, we will show a modal to say, okay, let's take a break, maybe show a timer for the break, and at the end of this timer, just close the modal and restart, if we want, restart the timer, the original big timer. And that's all. For that, we are going to use React, of course. We will also use Bulma, which is a small CSS framework that is really easy to use, and since we don't want to focus ourselves to the styles, Bulma will doing great. And we will also use Parcel as a bundler, but I will explain that in a moment. We will work, I think, with 4 episodes, and we will work that way. The first episode will focus on the setup of the tooling, the dev environment, and so on. Everything we need to work with React locally. The second video will focus on the display component, so creating all our components to show the timer, but without any logic. The third episode will be on the logic, implementing the timer, making it animate to show the seconds passing and so on, and then at the end of the timer, just fire events to do what we need to do when the timer ends. And the last video will focus on creating the modal and all the stuff that the modal do, and publish this small Pomodoro timer on Netlify. So let's start, and we will just focus on creating our dev env and all the stuff we need to work with React. I really start from nothing. I will create my project, which will be called Pomidor, which is a use-back word for tomato, which is the translation of Pomodoro. So I jump on my folder. We will start by just creating a Git repository for it, create our README, and just editing our README. So the README is the only stuff that I have already prepared, and it just contains all the information. You will have access to the GitHub repository in the description of this video, and in the GitHub repository you will have access to the online address of the application and the address for the 4 videos, and that's all. So that's for our README. I just need to tell you that I'm using a lot of aliases on my terminal. So just so you know, GS is for git status, GAA is for git add all, and GCM is for commit with a message. You don't need to really focus on that, because I think to see this video you need to already understand what is Git and how to use it. If you don't, I think it will not refrain you to follow the video, but I strongly encourage you to know what is Git. So check for that too. So we need the repository. And that's all for now. We will push it on GitHub another time at the end of everything. So that's for the creating. Before installing Parcel and all the tools we need, we will just start by creating a very, very, very small React app. Just something to show an hello world, just to have some files, so when we will install Parcel, it will be already usable. So for that, we will create two folders, the src and the components folder inside it. And we will create three files: src index.html, src app.js, and src components hello. That will just be it. We will edit all of them here. So src index, src app, and src components hello. Starting with the index.html, which is the very easy file. Just add a title, Pomidor. And to run a React app, inside the HTML, we only need two things. The first one is to have a DOM element, which we are using to inject our React elements. We will call it div id app, and also we need a script tag pointing to the main file, the entry point of our app. That's the stuff. Then before creating the app.js file, we will create our first React component, which will be very simple. I'm just importing some header from another project. Correcting the date, and that's okay. So for creating a React component, we need to import React inside the scope because we are using JSX code. I will explain you that just right now. And here are my first very simple component, which is a simple P saying hello world. And that's all for the component. As you may see, in React, we are using a syntax called JSX, which is kinda a way to write HTML inside JavaScript files, and we need React to be imported inside the files to understand it. Last thing that we need to do is to export our component, since we are using it outside. And now we can create our src app file, which is our main entry point. This file will not do a lot. We will need to import React, and we will need to import React DOM, which will load our React element into the DOM. React DOM.render. The render function is called with two parameters. The first one is our component that we need to import. So we will import hello from components hello. And so here the first argument of React render is our main component, and then we need to target the root point inside the DOM. That's all for our three small components. So there is our very first React app. Really easy, really small. It's just another word. If we want to run it right now, it will not work because we need dependencies, we need to install React and so on, and we also need to have a bundler, a small tool that will gather all the file together, we compile it and be sure that everything will run in every browser and just spit from those files a bundled file compressed and ready for production. But we already have our small application to test that. We will simply commit it. Simple React scaffolding. Okay. And now we can start by preparing our dev environment. So for that, we will simply say, okay, we need React, so we need a Node.js project. And so we will init a Node.js project using the npm init command, which will create our package.json. The package.json is a special file to define the dependencies and all the stuff that our projects need to be compiled or to run. We just change the version, removing emojis from the description. The script, we will just don't need it right now. The keywords, same. And I will just add my email here. And for now, that's all we need in the package.json. Okay. So now, what are we needing? We are needing two things: ESLint and Prettier, and then Parcel. ESLint and Prettier are tools to help us to produce better code. ESLint is what we call a linter, which is an automated program that can examine your code, analyze it, and say to you the errors that maybe you are missing, like you are using a variable without declaring it, or you are using a variable that isn't declared, that is declared but not in the good way, like you made a typo, you forgot a letter, so you have two variables that are not the same, and many more. And ESLint is a really good tool that will save you a lot of time. Prettier is a formatter. It's just a tool to format your code and make it beautiful. It takes a lot of decision for you, and that's also a good thing because when working on team, everyone has his own habits when writing code. So Prettier just cut in everything and saying, okay, here are my opinion, my stuff, and just everyone follow the same. To use ESLint and Prettier, we are using the ESLint config from Bcode, which is the one we use at Bcode, and we have a package with a script that we can just run to install everything in one command. So we just put that with the two flags with script and with hooks, and it will just propose us to install everything and also install npm scripts and git hooks. So now we will have a small script inside our package.json that we will use to analyze our files. Okay. So now, if we reload our package.json file, we can see that we have a lot of dev dependencies that are now installed, which are required to run ESLint and Prettier. We have a new script inside our script property, which is a script to run ESLint inside the src folder. And also we have Husky and LintStage configure that is just for running ESLint on staged file, and these allow us to commit if we have error inside of our files. which is always a good stuff. So that's for ESLint and Prettier. Everything is fine right now. And then we will install Parcel. As I said, Parcel is a bundler. It's a small tool, very fast, that we can use to simply bundle our application. As you can see on the small animation, it takes a lot of files and generates production-ready files. Parcel is a bit special because it's really easy. You don't have to configure anything. It will do everything for you. But Parcel is not the only bundler existing in the web. The most known is Webpack, which is really powerful but complex and not adapted for beginners. So that's why we are using Parcel. And we also have Create React App, which is a tool to set up everything for you when you want to work with React. We don't use it for this project because we really want to understand how React is working and how install React from ground zero. So we're not using Create React App, which is a really good tool, but came with a lot of stuff already pre-configured, and that's not our goal. So how to install Parcel? It's really easy. In the getting started, we have two ways of installing Parcel. The first one is to install Parcel globally, to having available in all our system, which is not really a good thing. It's better to use Parcel inside of our project. And that's for two reasons. The first one is the version of Parcel bundler will be linked into your project. So if someone else take your GitHub repository, clone it, and just run npm install, he will get the good version of Parcel. And that's a good thing for your team, but also a good thing for the future, because when you will come back to your project, maybe a few years in the future, and need to run everything, if you were only using Parcel globally, maybe you will use a very new version of Parcel, maybe with big changes that will not accept to run on your project. So that's not a good thing. So always use this kind of tool locally to your project. For that, we can simply run this command, which is npm install Parcel bundler save dev. Which will install Parcel. While Parcel is installing, we need to configure a small file which is called the babelrc file. We will write JavaScript code, but new JavaScript code, ES 2020 and ES 2021 and so on. And these languages need to be compiled to be understood with all the browsers. So for that, we just need to create a small file called babelrc. And this file will just say, okay, we need to compile our code with some presets. The presets are really easy because we just need two of them. The first one is Babel preset env, which we just say, okay, I will compile it for the most known browsers and stuff. And also preset React, so Babel understand that when we are using a file with React code, how to compile it and stuff. So that's for our babelrc file, and Parcel is installed. Next step on the installation of Parcel is just adding two scripts. When you want to use Parcel, you have two commands to understand and to remember. Parcel entry file and then Parcel build entry file. Parcel without arguments is just running Parcel for dev working. It will just compile your file and run a local server that you can use to browse your application locally. It will also do auto reloading, so when you change a file, it will update the server, so you don't need to do it by yourself. It's really easy and fine. And then when you want to package your file to publish them in production, you need Parcel build. So we will just create those two scripts into our package.json file. And I prefer myself, I prefer to name the dev comment as work. I find it more clear. npm run work, which, okay, I'm begin to work. But we are not using parcel directly. We are using npx. npx is a small tool from npm, which is just a specific tool to say, okay, run parcel locally if you find it. If you don't find it locally, use the global one. And if you don't find it the global, just download it, put it in the cache, and use it. So that's always useful, even though here we know that he will use the local one, the local version of parcel. So we have our work command and our build command. And technically now we are able to test our application. So we will run npm run work. The first time, parcel will need a bit of time because he will download all the dependencies, he will just set up everything. But that's the real ease of use with parcel, is that he will look at your code and he will say, okay, now I need React, I will download React. Oh, you are using SAS file, I will download SAS to make you use the SAS file. So that's really nice for that. So you can see he's downloading React, React DOM, and so on. So we will let him work for a bit. And finally, we will be able to check our application. Okay. So now we can load here our application and we see it's a hello world. That's all. That's all for setting up parcel. You see, it's very, very easy. So, oh, sorry. So now, before committing our configuration and our files, we need to say we need to configure a last thing, is that we have some files here that we don't want to commit. Babel.rc, we need to keep it. ESLint.rc, Prettier.rc, we need to keep it. The package log too. But we also have the cache folder, which is, like its name implies, the cache of parcel. So it's not something we need to commit and keep. And the dist folder. The dist folder is the place, as we can see here, where parcel put the production file. So if we want to publish our application right now, we can simply take these 3 files and put them on an FTP somewhere. And that will work. It will not be a big application, but that will work. So those files, we don't need them because we have everything in our project to build them. So don't need to commit it. To ignore those files, we will simply create git in your file, and inside it we will put the cache folder. We will also put the node modules because it's ignored globally on my system, but it's always good to put it there too, and the dist folder. I know we will also have an ESLint cache, I think. I just need to run it to... yeah, lint. Yeah, this. Okay, so now we also have a ESLint cache that we need to ignore. I just wanted to be sure. ESLint cache. Okay, so now we have git in your file that we will simply push with the rest. So no, the src component hello change, we will just not put it up and git reset src component hello file. Okay, so we will just commit all those files. Setting up the toolchain, Parcel, Babel, ESLint, Prettier. Up. And now we have our component. Before closing the video, I want to show you one last thing into our configuration. For that, we will just load our app.js file and our hello component. React is really cool because we can use some mechanism called the props to pass information from the parent to the component. Here, for instance, I don't want to say hello world anymore. I want the parent to give me what I need to greet. So I would like to say, okay, I want to say name Pomidor. And just say hello Pomidor instead of hello world. When we are using this syntax, which is called a property, a props, all these props are sent to the component as parameters. So here we have props, and we can use it inside the component just by use them like, okay, props.name, and that's all. Only downside here, I don't really like to have props and then props.something. We can use destructuring, so it will just be name. So that's all. And then we have a very simple component, and as we can see now, is hello Pomidor instead of hello world. And we can change it by saying, okay, hello Lenny, up. That's the stuff. Okay, but now I want to show you two things. One stuff that is a bit boring about React, it's not a big deal, but it's a bit boring, is that we are obliged, when we are using JS6, to import React inside the scope. We will just commit before that. Simple. Okay. So we have this problem that we always need to import React inside the scope, which is like, yeah, okay, but we are in 2021. Maybe we could just having that automatically. And yeah, that's true. For a few times now, we can just modify our Babel RC and just give an option to preset React, which is called runtime automatic. And runtime automatic will just say to Babel, okay, if you find JS6 code in it, import React. But we don't need to do it ourselves. So we can just remove that, and that's okay. Only downside, it's working. If we test it, our application is continuing to work. But the only downside is that for ESLint, he will say, yeah, okay, that's cool, but as you can see here, I need React to be in scope when using JS6. So I just need to edit my ESLint RC file. I will also import my header here. Okay, fix the date. And we will just need to say, okay, there are two rules that I don't need anymore because of the new runtime system, which are React JS6 uses React, and we need to disable it by passing 0, and React in JS6 scope. And that's all. No, we don't need anymore to have React inside our scope. I just need to force run. Sometimes it needs a bit of time, but we'll just compile it. So no, it's okay. We will just push that. BabelRC up. Set up React automatic. Runtime. I made a small fault, I think. Oh yeah, sorry, it's not a table, it's an object. That was a small typo. Okay. Yep. And now we can just say remove React from scope in components. And the second thing I want to show you, it's about the props. So here my component is receiving a name props, and it would be cool to have some kind of way to say, okay, this component needs the name props, and it needs to be a string. That will help me as a developer to not forget what I need, and it will be more useful when I'm working in a team. I'm developing a component, a colleague will use it, he don't necessarily need to read all the code, you just need to know which properties are used and required. And for that we have a package that is included with React, so you don't need to install it, it's already shipped with React, which is a package called prop types. And prop types is very easy to use. You simply say the name of the component dot prop types, and just defining the prop type, saying, okay, for this component I have a name props, and it will be a string, and I need it, so it will be required. And that's all. That's all I need for the prop types. One thing very important to understand is that the prop types are only used in dev-env. When the code of React is packed for production, all the prop types will be removed. So it's only for us as developers. Now, when I call the hello component, if I just remove it by saying df0, I don't use the name props, I will have no, so you see hello undefined, I will now have a warning in my console saying, warning, failed prop types, the prop name is marked as required in hello, but its value is undefined. So it's just telling me that I'm not using my component properly. So I will give him a name, but since I'm a bit dumb, or I just want to make a point here, I will give him a number. So now he will just tell me, warning, failed prop types, invalid prop name of type number supplied to hello expected string. So that's a very, very good tool to use, especially when we are working in team, but don't forget that maybe if it's a solo project, but maybe you will use some components later in the future, or come back to the component to the project in the future, and that's always useful. Last thing, is that most of the editors are using these prop types to help you when you are using the components. So in VS Code, Atom, Sublime, Vim, and etc., you have a way to, when you call a component, you will say you need a name as the same as when you type HTML. And that's all. I think that's all for this first video. So we have setting up all our dev env. We are setting ESLint, Prettier Parcel. We have a small React app that is running, and that's all for this first episode. In the next one, we will just create every component in a visible way. So we will create our timer, we will import the styles and stuff, just to have a beautiful timer, but that will do nothing, just the visual of the stuff, and that's all. So I will commit the last files using prop types and props in hello. And that's all for this first episode. See ya in the next. Bye.